Namaste everyone and welcome to Supergrad XAT. Now today I'll be discussing the preparation plan for the last 30 days that are remaining before your XAT exam. Now before I start my discussion on what to do in the next few days, my first advice would be to strongly forget CAT. I'm sure all of you have seen your response sheets, you have calculated your raw scores for CAT and you are trying to decide कि क्या percentile आ रहा है, but the hangover of CAT has to be forgotten as soon as possible. Now having assumed that you would have moved on from CAT, which is very difficult to do, but now let's talk about the XAT preparation plan. So there are different ways in which we can divide this discussion. The three parts on which I'll discuss today will be: one, your preparation section wise; second would be the number of mocks that you are expected to appear for and how to analyze those mocks, and the third would be the part where we solve previous year's questions. So let's start. Now the first part that we'll take up is section-wise preparation. So when we say section-wise preparation, there are three sections in the XAT exam. The first section being verbal ability and logical reasoning. It is called as VALR, and there is a reason why this particular section is called as verbal ability and logical reasoning, because there are a range of different categories of questions that are a combination of critical reasoning, your check on comprehension and language skills, as well as critical reasoning. So let's start the bifurcation on how to prepare on different heads when it comes to the VALR section. Number one would be preparing for poem-based RCs. So typically I tend to pronounce it as poem, and my 6-year-old daughter criticizes me for the same, but I'll say it the same way that I'm used to. So there are poem-based RCs and they are different. So understand that this part that we just had a talk with a convener, you can watch that video as well. He said that you are expected to logically interpret poem and not really flow too much into emotions, whereas poems themselves are created to express a meaning which is slightly different from the direct meaning that gets conveyed. So there is a challenge in your ability to answer questions after reading a poem. So please make sure that you practice a lot on this aspect. There's almost a guarantee that you will get one poem and there'll be few questions following it. Second different part will be grammar. There are always at least two questions on English grammar, whether it be the category of article placement, a and the, whether it be subject verb agreement related questions, whether it be identifying the incorrect sentence based on prepositions and conjunctions, and typically these are the areas that get tested when it comes to English grammar. So my recommendation will be that at least be very confident of your preparation on grammar on these areas. Now there is one typical question that a lot of students have: sir, I have been convent educated, my English is pretty good, I am very fluent speaker, and can I go by gut feeling when I attempt English grammar questions? My strong recommendation will be, the gut feeling arises because you have prepared well for grammar in your school days or you have been brought up that way. So the more preparation you do, the better will be your chance of getting a question right based on gut feeling. So please do not ignore preparation. You may always take a call later on during the exam, but please do not say that I'm not preparing because मैं तो gut feel से ही mark कर दूंगा. Will not work. Next part is vocabulary. There will be at least two questions on vocabulary where you might get a filling the blanks question where you have to fit in the appropriate word in context, and a similar question based on vocabulary. So if you have prepared for vocabulary, a lot of people have this rant, sir, I prepared really lot when it comes to vocabulary, but effectively CAT में उतना ज़्यादा यूज डायरेक्टली नहीं आया. बिलीव मी, XAT में वो यूज़ आएगा. तो अगर आपने प्रिपरेशन करी है वोकैबुलरी की, मेक श्योर दैट यू रिवाइज सो दैट यू आर एबल टू डिलीवर व्हेन रिक्वायर्ड. एंड द लास्ट एंड एक्सट्रीमली इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट is critical reasoning. So a lot of questions in RCs as well as non-RC based questions will be heavily based on your ability to comprehend and reason critically. तो क्रिटिकल रीजनिंग वाले क्वेश्चन टाइप्स आप प्रीवियस ईयर्स क्वेश्चन से चेक कर सकते हैं, आरसीज के क्वेश्चंस चेक कर सकते हैं, एंड यू कैन प्रिपेयर अकॉर्डिंगली. So that was about the verbal ability and logical reasoning section. Now the second most interesting section is the decision making section. Now decision making section will typically have 21 questions. There will be 7 different sets of 3 questions each. Broadly that has been the pattern, and you have to understand those scenarios that each question represents and take a decision. Now this is probably one of the most subjective sections in any aptitude exams in the entire world. And what do I mean when I say subjective? आपको लग सकता है कि जो आपने आंसर मार्क करा है वो सही है, किसी और को लग सकता है कि उसने जो आंसर मार्क करा है वो सही है, और ज़ैट अथॉरिटीज़ जो आंसर देंगे वो शायद इन दोनों के अलावा कुछ और ही होगा और वो सही होगा, और आप डिबेट करते रह जाओगे, यू विल नेवर बी एबल टू एग्री कि यार मेरा आंसर क्यों गलत है. सो इट मेक्स फॉर दैट इंटरेस्टिंग जजमेंट वेयर यू टेक अ पर्टिकुलर डिसीजन विच इज एक्सपेक्टेड टू बी टेकन अंडर द गिवन कॉन्टेक्स्ट. So I'll use two words, being contextually relevant. You have to choose the option which is the most contextually relevant. Given context में क्या दिया है, given context में clues किस तरह के दिए हैं, तो जो आपको सिनारियो दिया रहेगा उसका comprehension कि क्या क्या उसमें से टेक अवे ले सकते हैं, क्वेश्चन स्टेम ने एग्जैक्टली क्या ऑब्जेक्टिव पूछा है, एंड व्हाट इज द करस्पॉन्डिंग कोर्स ऑफ एक्शन दैट वी कैन टेक. दैट डिसीजन मेकिंग सेक्शन विल रिक्वायर लॉट ऑफ प्रैक्टिस. इन फैक्ट वी आर गोइंग टू कम अप विद अ सीरीज ऑफ सेशंस ऑन अंडरस्टैंडिंग द गाइडलाइंस एंड पॉइंटर्स, as well as a lot of practice based on some newer sets as well as previous year's questions. So stay tuned to this. You will get lots and lots of practice here on this very same channel for decision making. I think that's about it for decision making. Let's move to the last section, which is the quantitative ability and data interpretation, QADI section. Now this section historically has been considered a challenging section because of the level of difficulty of questions, and this year XAT has introduced for the first time something called as scientific calculator, which means there is a possibility that you will be able to use log. So if there is a logarithm based question, you will be able to calculate the values of log using that scientific calculator available. So chances, as was the discussion with the convener of that, questions mostly will be doable. What are the important areas that you need to work on? Obviously arithmetic stands out, time and work, time speed distance, profit and loss, ratios. These are all questions that are going to be very important. Plus XAT has a history of giving at least one question on statistics. So please do not ignore statistics. Mean median mode को लेकर frequently question आया हुआ है. And there is one question expected on data sufficiency. कई बार दो आ जाते हैं, but data sufficiency में only one is sufficient, both are sufficient, neither are sufficient. Sometimes you need to practice them a bit to be able to understand the tricky part of those question types. So make sure that you work on these areas. Again, we'll be coming up with sessions on the channel so you can practice from there along with PYQs that are available. Now, the next area of discussion when it comes to the preparation plan is mocks. So this again becomes a decision making scenario. क्या आपके लिए कोई आपको एक स्पेसिफिक नंबर ऑफ मॉक्स का टारगेट दे सकता है? तो माय आंसर इज नो. भाई आपकी प्रिपरेशन कैसी है? हाउ मेनी मॉक्स कैन यू अपीयर? अभी तक का आपका प्रिपरेशन प्लान कैसा रहा है? हाउ कॉन्फिडेंट यू आर अक्रॉस 3 सेक्शंस एंड स्टफ लाइक दैट आर इंपॉर्टेंट वेरिएबल्स दैट नीड टू बी टेकन इनटू कंसिडरेशन टू टेल यू कि भाई आप कितने मॉक्स हो. तो माय सजेशन विल बी as many as possible without compromising on the preparation part. मतलब मॉक ज़्यादा देने के चक्कर में पढ़ाई नहीं हुई ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए, मॉक ज़्यादा देने के चक्कर में तबीयत खराब हो गई ऐसा भी नहीं होना चाहिए. तो it has to be a good balance between health, it has to be a good balance between preparation, and it has to be finally mocks with their thorough analysis. So my suggestion will be anywhere around 5 to 10 mocks. If you feel you're really well prepared, give around 10 odd mocks. If you feel your preparation is not that good, 5 mocks along with good analysis should give you that feel of preparing and remaining focused for 170 odd minutes. Remember, the paper duration is very long. 170 minutes is going to feel like forever कि पेपर खत्म ही नहीं हो रहा है. तो प्रैक्टिस ज़रूरी है मॉक्स की. And the third part is previous year's questions. Are they going to be useful? My recommendation is they are going to be super useful. And what is the best way to cover them? You can solve them parallelly along with us on the same YouTube channel that you are watching this video. We are going to come up with a XAT PYQ series where we'll be solving questions across the 3 different sections. कितने साल के पेपर्स सॉल्व करना चाहिए? रियलिस्टिकली स्पीकिंग कम से कम पिछले 3 साल के पेपर्स तो पूरे सॉल्व कर ही लें, बिकॉज इट्स जस्ट 1 स्लॉट. कैट जैसा नहीं है कि 3 स्लॉट है, एक ही पेपर होगा. तो XAT 2024 जनवरी में होता है इसलिए भी कॉल इट 2024. XAT 2024 का एक ही पेपर अवेलेबल है. तो XAT 24 का एक पेपर, XAT 23 का एक पेपर, 22 का एक पेपर. इफेक्टिवली आर सॉल्विंग 3 पेपर्स विच इज डेफिनेटली अ बेयर मिनिमम. ट्राई एंड सॉल्व लास्ट 5 years पेपर if possible, and then there is no limit. If you feel you're well prepared and PYQs is something that can give you a big boost, please solve as many last year papers as possible. So I think to summarize, prepare well on these 3 areas, appear in mocks, do analysis and solve PYQs. I think your preparation would be really solid for XAT. One last message, despite whatever has happened in CAT 2024, forget that event and this is a new exam. Don't be complacent if you have done well in CAT, and don't be underconfident or dejected just because CAT did not go well. It was a one-day performance that matters, and similarly XAT on 5th January will be one-day performance that will matter. If you can go and give your best on the D-Day, believe me, you'll have a chance of getting into one of the top 10 B schools in the country, XLRA Jamshedpur. Even if you don't, there are a lot of other good affiliated colleges through the XAT exam, and you will land up in a really good B school if you perform well on the D-Day. So that's it from my side. I'll take a leave. Ciao.